Hello, my name is Kaleigh Hill and I am a resource economics student at UMass Amherst. My project investigates the impacts of net metering policies on households in Massachusetts. Net metering policies began in the US in the 1980s to incentivize on-site distributed electricity generation, such as residential solar PV systems. Each customer is either a net buyer or net seller of electricity each month, depending on whether they produce energy in excess of their needs and sell it back to the grid, or consume beyond their system's production and buy energy from the grid. Traditionally, net metering customers who produce energy in excess of their needs have been able to sell it back to the grid at the current retail rate. It is notable that the retail rate, or the rate paid by consumers to the electric utility, is higher than the wholesale rate, or the cost to the utility of producing the energy. The higher retail compensation rate provided to net metering households was intended to incentivize the adoption of solar PV systems and decrease the damage caused by fossil fuel electricity production. However, in recent years, there has been increasing concern that net metering customers are not contributing fairly to the fixed infrastructure and distribution costs of the grid. These concerns, as well as the declining costs of solar systems, have led some to call for the end of net metering programs. My research investigates three big issues regarding net metering's impacts on Massachusetts homeowners. Firstly, do non-net metering homeowners subsidize net metering homeowners? If so, by how much? Secondly, what distributional impacts exist across income groups? Thirdly, how is the true value of solar calculated as the optimal net metering compensation rate? I conduct a rough calculation to determine the rate of cross-subsidization of net metering households by grid-only households in Massachusetts. Net metering households receive compensation for excess electricity at the retail rate. However, this exceeds what utilities save by not producing this electricity themselves. Further, net metering households do not pay for fixed grid costs for the energy they obtain from their panels. Thus, these costs not paid by net metering households must be passed on to other grid-connected consumers. First, I calculate the total monetary value lost to utilities due to net metering by calculating the difference between the retail price and the wholesale price and multiplying that value by the total amount of distributed residential solar in Massachusetts. Next, I determine the money lost to the utilities per kilowatt hour of energy produced by dividing the total value lost by the total annual residential electricity sold in Massachusetts. I assume that this entire cost is passed on to consumers and that standard household energy use is 10,000 kilowatt hours. Thus, multiplying the total money lost to the utilities per kilowatt hour by the annual kilowatt hour consumption of a standard household provides a reasonable estimate of the cost shift. My rough calculation determines that a given household that does not participate in net metering cross-subsidizes net metering households by $33.54 per year. This is primarily because compensation for excess energy at the retail rate is greater than what utilities save by not producing this energy themselves, and because net metering households do not contribute as much to the fixed costs of maintaining the grid, although they benefit from grid services by being able to purchase or sell electricity as needed to complement their solar panels. My second research question investigates concerns that households that install solar systems and participate in net metering programs are wealthier than the general population. This is a serious fairness concern because this would mean that the cross-subsidization effect would result in wealthier households free-riding off lower-income households. I investigate the potential distributional effects of net metering policies by analyzing data on solar installations for Massachusetts households and the median incomes of these households between 2014 and 2018. The average median income of solar PV adopters in Massachusetts is $84,416. This is greater than that of the general Massachusetts population, which is $78,772. Additionally, only the lowest fifth percentile of solar PV adopters had a household income at or below the poverty line of $26,500, while 9.4% of the general population of Massachusetts lives at or below the poverty line. Solar PV adopters are less likely than those who acquire energy exclusively from the grid to be experiencing scarcity. Thus, the subsidization of net metering households by non-net metering households makes current net metering policies regressive. My final research question determines how to calculate the true value of solar as the optimal net metering compensation rate. Given the concerns of valuing solar energy at the retail price, it is important to determine the true value of solar to establish the appropriate rate of net metering compensation. The base rate should be the wholesale price, as this would be the cost to the utility company to produce the electricity if there were no additional benefits or costs to distributed generation. However, solar energy notably boasts considerable environmental benefits through the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. The true value of solar should account for reduced carbon emissions using what is known as the social cost of carbon, the monetary valuation of the benefits of reduced carbon emissions. The social cost of carbon is $51 per ton, and 0.005 of a ton of carbon per kilowatt-hour are emitted in Massachusetts. The social cost of carbon in Massachusetts is thus 2 cents per kilowatt-hour. However, as the grid becomes cleaner, new solar system installations replace cleaner energy sources and reduce carbon emissions less than earlier system installations. The true value of solar should also include the benefits of reduced line losses and system overdemand. However, the value of this reduction in losses is difficult to measure. It is important to note that the true value of solar changes depending on the level of solar penetration. At low penetration levels, only the benefits of solar energy, such as the social cost of carbon and reduced overdemand and line losses, occur. Adding these to the wholesale electricity price provides an estimate of the true value of solar and thus the appropriate net metering compensation rate for current conditions. At higher penetration levels, solar power becomes an economic burden on the grid as increased costs outweigh benefits through higher grid integration costs and diminishing marginal benefits. Nevertheless, as climate change becomes increasingly serious, the social cost of carbon will eventually rise high enough to make high levels of solar penetration cost-effective. In conclusion, I've found that net metering households are cross-subsidized by households that exclusively use grid energy at a rate of $33.54 per year. This is especially concerning because non-net metering households are more likely to be at or below the poverty line. At current solar penetration levels, these issues can be rectified by compensating net metering households using the true value of solar, which adds the social cost of carbon and the benefits of reduced line and system overdemand losses to the wholesale price of electricity. Thank you.